Getting in more breaking updates right now, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with his Ukrainian counterpart on Ukraine's border crisis, as well as to discuss how to further support Kiev while isolating Russia as the war enters its 11th day. Now, this is a meet between Antony Blinken and Ukrainian counterpart, and the visuals there on your screens as well. The two leaders held talks at the border, where so far more than 750,000 refugees have passed through amidst the nearly 1.5 million people who are fleeing, in fact, into neighboring countries. In fact, UN figures show that Poland has so far received the highest number, followed by Hungary. In fact, we have the soundbite as well. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone. The entire world stands with Ukraine, just as I am standing here in Ukraine with my friend, my colleague, Kuleba, the foreign minister of Ukraine. We've seen an extraordinary surge of support from around the world against Russia's aggression, against Russia's war of choice, against what is happening every single day, every single minute in Ukraine to civilians throughout the country as a result of this aggression, but also extraordinary support for Ukraine itself. We've come from several days of meetings with NATO, the European Union, countries beyond the G7, and we see that support not only continued security support, humanitarian support, economic support, but that support will increase. And as to the pressure on Russia, not only is it unprecedented, not only is it producing very, very concrete results in Russia, but that pressure too will not only continue, it will grow until this war of choice is brought to an end.
And those are the visuals on your screens, in fact, of the meet that happened between Antony Blinken and his Ukrainian counterpart, where the two discussed the situation as far as the Ukraine border crisis is concerned, and also the refugee crisis, which UN has said that it's going to be the biggest crisis, refugee crisis we've seen in history so far.
I hope the people of Ukraine will be able to see this as a clear manifestation that we have friends who literally stand by us. Thank you for your leadership in consolidating international community in support of Ukraine. We had meaningful discussions about weapons, about sanctions, about isolation of Russia on international arena. And the message that I have to convey, that I would like to convey now, is very simple. Ukraine will win this war anyway, because this is the people's war for their land, and we defend the right cause. The question is the price of our victory. And if our partners continue to take bold, systemic decisions to step up economic and political pressure on Ukraine, if they continue to provide us with necessary weapons, the price will be lower. This will save many lives in Ukraine, many houses, many children will be born, many sufferings will be avoided. This is the only question that is on the agenda. If anyone in the world one day starts feeling the sanctions fatigue, for example, then more people in Ukraine will be dying, suffering, and more destruction will be brought on us by Russian airplanes and by Russian weapons. So we appreciate everything that has been done in the last week. Unprecedented, swift reaction to the Russian aggression. But it has to be continued, pressure has to be stepped up, and Ukraine has to be provided with all weapons necessary to fight in this, as Tony said, war of choice of President Putin.
So that's the latest that we are learning. In fact, Antony Blinken has just tweeted saying that the United States government official in all corners of the globe, including in Russia itself, people are calling for the end of Russia's brutal attack on Ukraine. The blue and yellow of the Ukrainian flag is being flown around the world as people and governments assert they are united with Ukraine. So Antony Blinken there tweeting and extending support to Ukraine, saying that people across the globe stand united with Ukraine in its effort to thwart the invasion by the Russian troops.
Getting you fast-paced developments right now. We have a tweet which was put out by the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, and he goes on to say that he had a conversation with the President of the United States. He goes on to say that as part of the constant dialogue, I had another conversation with the President of the United States. The agenda included issues of security, financial support for Ukraine, and the continuation of sanctions against Russia. This is the latest we're getting to right now at the top of the broadcast, that President Joe Biden and his Ukrainian counterpart had a conversation, a phone call perhaps, and Zelenskyy going on to say that the issue of security, financial support for Ukraine, and the continuation of sanctions against Russia was on the top of the agenda. Now, this comes amid the third round talks which are yet to take place between Ukraine and Russia. We have to wait and see how the developments pan out. Here we're looking at US support for Ukraine continuing in the backdrop of Zelenskyy slamming NATO and allies.
For taking us through all those latest developments. So that's the phone call that took place between Zelenskyy and Joe Biden. Of course, it remains to be seen how this pans out in the long run.